Yeah, they tune in, it's the Dude Bash, rolling deep. Mic check like that, fine, let's hit a beat. Voices flowing like the river, knowledge on the spree. Every episode of Journey, come ride with me. Just hit play, it's a vibe, can't you see? The Dude Bash, we breaking it down. From the underground to the top of the town. Life's effects, intertwined, wearing the crown. Podcast kings and queens, we wearing the gown.
So, where we at? Okay, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I'll read you guys a little storyline. Says the Nightmare on Elm Street. Nancy Thompson and a group of her friends are being tormented by a cloud killer in their dreams named Freddy Krueger. Nancy must think quickly as Fred tries to pick one of them off one by one. When he has you in your sleep, who is there to save you? And, we've talked about this before. Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite horror movie of all time. What do you guys think about it, man? I'll let just whichever one wants to kick off, man. Any one of the movies.
You know that the idea came from an actual real scenario, right?
Yes, that's what you said. I hadn't looked it up.
So apparently, it was in the documentary that I watched on it. Apparently, somewhere in some country, there was people that started dying in their sleep. But everybody started having these nightmares, and they were saying that they were seeing the same guy. And then shortly thereafter, they would get killed in their sleep.
Godzilla.
And that's, it was in the documentary. I don't know what country it was. I don't know any of the other specifics about it. But that scenario was supposed to have some truth to it. Now, the actual guy that was supposed to be Freddy Krueger actually was somebody that Wes Craven knew that scared him when he was a little kid. And that was also in the documentary too, but I can't remember exactly who he said that guy was. He just said that he was a creepy looking guy with a hat.
Yeah, well, the story goes is from the 1980s. And said there was an epidemic of people dying in their sleep in Cambodia, mostly immigrants from Cambodia, and the condition became known as Asian death syndrome. So he read about that, and that's what kind of gave him the idea about Nightmare on Elm Street. But, we talked about stuff that made these characters like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees and all that stuff, made them like real iconic. I'll start off tonight by, let's talk about the glove. Do you think that Freddy would have been as iconic if he was killing somebody with a butcher knife versus the glove?
No.
I say no.
I say yeah, because you look at the idea of somebody getting into your dreams. That's one big thing. Then you look at the hat and the sweater. I think that's two big iconic things right there. So yeah, I think the glove enhanced it for sure. But I think it would have been an iconic. I think he would still be an iconic horror movie personality for sure.
Well, Freddy had two things going for him. He had the glove, which I think really helped him stand out because that's something you never seen before. And he had the thing where he killed you in your dreams because, like we've talked about before, everybody's got to sleep. And, it's funny that you mentioned, his sweater, the red and green stripes. Fun fact, the sweater was originally supposed to be red and yellow striped. And Wes Craven actually read an article in a science journal that said the two most contrasting colors to the human eye was red and green. And that's why he changed the colors to red and green.
Yeah, I had read that too. And I thought that was really cool when he implemented that in there. Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite all-time horror movie. I'm not a horror movie watcher, really, but there's something about Nightmare on Elm Street that was great. It was just a really scary movie when I first saw it.
I think it was the rated R version of Edward Scissorhands.
See that? I can see
And
that.
Johnny Depp was in the first one, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So Matt,
Most iconic death scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
so going with what you're saying, okay, do you say it's your favorite because of anything in particular about the movie, or is it a nostalgia thing, or what?
I think Matt's having some difficulties right now, but I think I'll go ahead and answer the question. With me, I can remember sitting when I was probably this movie came out in I think '84, right?
Yep,
So
84.
that made me like 6 years old when it came out, and I could still remember sitting at my grandmother's house and watching the trailer for this movie when it came out. And I remember looking over at my mom and I said, "That's going to be a good one, man." Just by watching the trailer, little, and I can remember being young, 6, 7 years old, and taking nails and taping them to a glove and running around the neighborhood, acting like I was Freddy Krueger. I go way back with this movie, man, way back.
So, not necessarily the first one, but Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, me looking back, is probably the first horror movie that I remember watching and having a very vivid memory of. It's the first one that I remember watching.
Was it the whole, gym teacher getting beat like a whip?
No, it was, well, I mean, that was in it, of course, but I distinctly remember we come home, seemed at the movie store, they had a cardboard cutout of Freddy. Okay,
Yes.
and it was Freddy Krueger Part 2.
Mhm.
We rented the Part 2 movie. We got it home, put it in the VCR, and the first thing that I remember about the movie is the guy on the bus. And so he's riding through the town on the bus, and then the bus kind of goes out in the middle of nowhere, and then he's in a dream state, but Freddy Krueger is actually the bus driver, and he gets up and he's got the hand that goes across the top of the bus. Okay.
Mhm.
I remember that scene distinctly, and that's probably the first full-on movie that I remember actually watching start to finish.
Listen,
Horror movie.
I am 46 years old. I coach a middle school football team, and on these middle school football teams, on the away games, we take a school bus. Just last week, I was in a school bus coming home from a football game. It's dark, and I'm just waiting for Freddie to get up out of that grave and start trying to kill us. I thought the same thing. I was sitting on that school bus, and I'm like, man, Freddie's about to get up and drive this sucker off in a big hole or something like that.
And it would have probably made you feel better because we got crushed in that game, dude.
Yeah, it was awful.
I think the first. Now, Daniel, what was your question to me? There was a train going by, and I didn't want to catch.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. Okay, my question to you is, you were talking about this as your favorite movie or your favorite horror movie. Okay.
Yeah.
So my question was, what makes it your favorite? Is it your favorite because of any particular scene or the way that it was filmed, or is it a nostalgia thing?
Yeah, give us your insights, Matt.
Yeah, we want to hear your insights for.
Yeah, you're the best of us.
Yeah. Number
I think
one.
what for me was when you compare. Now, I've always said that Halloween was probably the most. I think that is like probably the most perfect horror film ever made.
I'll agree with that.
I mean, there's problems with it, but as far as it's just well done, well written, well shot, well acted, everything for that time.
It's probably the most well-paced horror movie that I've ever seen. It was, and that's what the whole movie is builds suspense.
Now,
And the pacing of it does it. But go ahead.
I like Nightmare on Elm Street probably more because Nightmare on Elm Street it hits you on a more visceral level. I mean, because it's pretty damn scary. I mean, you're talking about you have to sleep. So what if there's somebody that can get to you while you're sleeping? That to me is scary. Then you had the imagery of Freddy Krueger, who is scary. Then you got the backstory of Freddy Krueger, who was scary. I loved it. But I tell you what makes me love it even more is Heather Langenkamp. Because I'm going to tell you, when I was a kid, even today, she's a fox. Even today.
The iconic bathtub scene. Need I say more?
She was, when I remember I'll never forget when I first saw Nightmare on Elm Street. It was in my Uncle Wesley's basement. You remember, Daniel? He had that pool table.
Yep, with the chair. We played
Yeah.
with the chair too.
So that's the first time I watched Nightmare on Elm Street, and it was probably 1988 is when I first saw it. And oh my God, it was so scary to me being down in that dark basement. So I remember that. But as far as another thing I remember from that movie is her. I'm telling you, man, she was like the first big Hollywood crush I ever had. Still do. I mean, she's just great.
The bathtub scene forever has got me. Well, it just does something to me.
It's a great movie. I mean, that was Wes Craven. I mean, God, man, that's just such a great movie. I mean, it attacks you on so many different levels. I love it. It'll always be number one for me. It's not perfect, but man, it's pretty damn close.
Honestly, the thing, and I'm going to be way in the minority on this one. I'll already tell you, but the thing that I didn't like about the movie was the way that it ended.
Yeah,
I know that those movies are notorious for ending on just a weird kind of thing, to where you don't know what's real and what's a dream, and that's the way it's supposed to be. You don't know if it's a dream or not. But I just did not like the way that it ended. I didn't like the way the first one ended. Didn't like the way part 2 ended. The way that part 3 ended with the little ceramic house that was supposed to be the Kruger house that's sitting on that guy's nightstand, and the light comes on in the house. Now, I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But the way that they end, I just don't like them.
but
Space suck.
Dream is probably the best sequel out of that whole series. Part 3.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. I like how they brought Nancy back into it.
Oh,
I watched it the other night. It was very good.
Dream was great. I think that one is probably because I think Frank Darabont direct that one, who did the Walking Dead and the Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption and The Mist. I want to say he directed it, but I can't be sure. That's my second favorite out of that whole series is part 3.
Well, I love part 3. Don't get me wrong. Part 3 is a righteous movie.
It is.
But that's where Freddy started to really bring the comedy. And that's where it started. That's where it started to go downhill with Freddy, to where he quit being scary like he was in parts 1 and 2, and he started being a comedian like he was in 3 through the rest of them, like part 16 or whatever they're on now.
Yeah, until New Nightmare.
Yeah.
Which New Nightmare is
another one that was real genius script, man. I'm talking genius script. You could bring Heather back into the fold, but make her in real life, and now you start integrating Freddy. That's breaking down the fourth wall on another level there. I loved that movie, man.
I did too, and I don't know why people hate it so much, because you think about it, it's how do you we always talk about on this show, how would you reinvent something? Well, that's what Wes Craven did in '94. He reinvented Freddy Krueger by pulling him into the real world.
Exactly.
And that was to me, I agree with you 100%, Corey. That movie is probably the smartest horror movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Of how to pull that off and make it really good.
Next to Scream. Scream Part 1 was another one that was genius. But yeah, New Nightmare.
I'm not saying that New Nightmare wasn't genius, because as far as what Craven was trying to do, it was a super smart film. The problem for me is that it wasn't scary. It just wasn't. It didn't check all them boxes for me. It didn't get me the same way.
You know what my main problem with the New Nightmare movie was? And it's going to seem petty, but the main problem I had with New Nightmare is that the little kid that they had playing in that movie, I can't stand that little kid as an actor. I mean, look, I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm sure, he does a lot for the community, but I couldn't, and that kid played in several movies, and I can't stand him in nothing he played. I just don't like his look, if that makes any sense. And that, kind of ruined that movie for me because I just didn't like that kid as an actor. Not that he's not a good person, but I didn't like him as an actor. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean,
Man, you ain't got to doctor it up for us. If you don't like, you ain't got to say, I'm sure he's a good person. He's probably got an opioid addiction, man. It don't matter. If you don't like him, don't like him. Say it with your whole chest.
Yeah, I don't like him.
I bet his credit score sucks. I don't like him.
I don't have a problem with the kid, but the movie just wasn't scary to me. And when I'm wanting to watch a Freddy Krueger movie, I guess maybe that's why I don't watch anything Nightmare on Elm Street related past part 3. Because after part 3, it was just too much comedy for me,
It's
man.
real comical, yeah.
It's just too much comedy. Like when I went to go watch Freddy's Dead, which was part 6 in 3D at the Plaza Twin in Athens. My mom bought my ticket for me. My mom bought the ticket for me. Did you go with me to see that one?
Yeah, yeah.
And man, that was comedy gold from the first second of the movie, man. It was nothing but comedy. There wasn't nothing scary about that movie. And when I'm wanting to watch a child killer invading these teenagers' dreams in revenge for their parents killing him, I want to see some scary stuff, man. I don't want to see him cracking jokes and stuff. That's the thing got me.
Yeah, past part 2, you don't get anything like that. And then I'm afraid, like when New Nightmare come out, we were already accustomed to the smack talking Freddy by then. And that's probably a lot of what ruined that last movie for you because, even in Freddy versus Jason, he's talking all that smack, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I think New Nightmare was one of those movies where, what do you do? Because you've already made 6 of those movies, so you want to make another one. And how do you do it? Well, you make a guy that can invade your dreams. You turn it into where he has to come into the real world to go after the people who were actors. That had never been done before.
that's genius, man.
I mean, I love that movie. To me, it's one of my favorite. It's in my probably top 50 all time. Definitely my top 5 horror movies all time because it was just a really good. To me, it's a solid script, up and down, great acting. I loved it. I loved the concept.
I was fixing to say I don't even know if I've got 50 horror movies. Not anymore, man. Like when I was a teenager, shoot, man, I'd watch anything. It didn't matter. But now I'm a little more picky, I guess.
You might watch Terrifier 3 tomorrow. You ain't picky.
Well, I mean that's because I get to go watch it for free, and I'm going to see it with my son. My wife, my son, and my daughter-in-law. You got to go watch it.
Awesome family nighting, man. Terrifier 3, baby.
But I think the thing that works with Freddy that I don't know if it would that doesn't work with Friday the 13th is it's really hard to stop Freddy because he's a dream demon. He's not like Jason Voorhees. I mean, he's like in a physical body. You can really kind of drown his ass in a lake or something again. But Freddy's a little bit harder to stop.
Until you pull him into the real world, then he's a chump. All his power in the dreams. He's actually pretty weak once you get him in the real world. That's what Nancy figured out in part 1.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. From part 1, she figured out how to pull him into the real world. Then once he got to the real world, he didn't have no powers. He was just a chump, man.
Well, who do you give more credit to evading the serial killer? Do you give more credit to Laurie Strode getting away from Myers, or do you give more credit for Nancy getting rid of Freddy?
Oh, 100% Nancy, man, because Laurie Strode, she ran from Myers for like a 10-minute segment, in part 1. Not even 10 minutes in part 1. She probably ran from him for 5 minutes in part 1, and then ran from him again for another 5 to 7 minutes in part 2. And then she was running. She wasn't fighting. She was running. Nancy, she talked to her friends. She was like, hey, man, call me, try to wake me up, this and that. Johnny Depp didn't call. He got pulled into bed, got killed. She realized what was happening. She realized that she wasn't going to get no help from the adults. And then she made her own weapons, man. She was pouring gunpowder in light bulbs. She hung a sledgehammer up above a door, man. She was ready, man.
She was bad, son.
I love that character because I think Craven really made her. And that's one of the movies I point to as far as horror related. When the final girl, to me, really took off was because Nancy was really empowered about stopping this guy, and we hadn't seen that really up until that point.
But also, I'll say this, okay? Now we're not really comparing apples to apples anymore when we're looking at Friday the 13th versus Halloween, okay? Because if you look at the movies and you look at the pacing of it, okay, Halloween was all about suspense, building suspense. I mean, the whole movie was Michael was stalking Laurie and Laurie's friends, okay? So by the time Laurie actually went over to the Wallace's house, okay, she didn't even know what was going on. She went in there thinking that they were playing a prank on her, right? That was the last 15 minutes of the movie, right before she started getting chased. You look at Nightmare on Elm Street, they had already figured out what was going on. They knew what was going on. They were trying to stop it, and they were still getting killed. So the pacing of the movie, the whole style of the movie, you're building up the suspense in Halloween where you're not really building up suspense in Nightmare. The suspense coming from Nightmare is, oh my God, what is Nancy going to do? How is she going to stop this guy? In Halloween 1, Laurie's walking across the street and you're going, don't do it. You've been seeing this dude all over town. Your friends have been seeing the dude all over town. Now, all of a sudden, you can't get your friends to call you back on the phone. Something's wrong. There's all these red flags up, and Laurie still goes across the street. That's mega suspense building. So when we're talking about the two different movies, we're talking about 1980s slasher films, but we're not really comparing apples to apples anymore. And I dig that because that's one of the main reasons why I like Nightmare on Elm Street, is because it wasn't that type of movie. By the end of the movie, you're like, oh, shit, what's she going to do, man? How's she going to fight this guy?
Yeah, then she actually fights him too, like hand-on-hand grapple wrestling with him too, man.
Oh yeah.
Nancy was bad, son. I think, if I'm thinking about it, she's probably the baddest final girl in any of the movies, man, because she actually squared up and won. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think the scariest imagery of all the Nightmare on Elm Streets was probably off of one where she's sitting in class and she's dreaming, and her friend's in that clear body bag.
That was scary, man.
That had some of the. I think Nightmare 1 had some of the scariest imagery, especially that scene, the Johnny Depp scene, the scene where he's in that alley. That's scary scene.
With the long arms right there.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah. Is whenever Tina was dreaming and she had all of her friends over, you're thinking, okay, now her friends are there. She hadn't really told them everything about what's going on, but she's mentioned, the guy with the claws, and they're like, oh yeah, I've dreamed about this guy too, and there's always that whole safety in numbers thing. She's laying in bed with her boyfriend. I mean, how much closer can you be when you're with the person, in bed with you, and now you're asleep, okay, and you're totally defenseless. You go out, Freddy's in the alley, the setup to it, that was suspenseful. That was a really good scene.
I think that scared me was when she was on the phone trying to get a hold of Johnny Depp's character, and she'd already pulled Freddie out, and then he pops up behind her when she's on the phone because he doesn't have his hat.
Yeah.
That scene scares me every time.
Is that the scene where like it becomes the tongue and it starts licking her face?
Yeah.
No, that's before. This is like toward the end of the movie where she's looking out the window and she's screaming on the phone, and or she might.
I think that's the same scene, though. I think the tongue
he
comes
comes
up.
up behind her because she'd already pulled him out into the real world. He like shows up behind her, and that's when they start fighting in the bed.
Yeah.
That's a good. That whole movie, to me, Nightmare on Elm Street, that'll always be my favorite horror movie of all time.
It's the death of Tina in the rotating room. You know, that first off, that was an awesome scene because she's getting a drug across the ceiling and just getting ripped apart right in front of her boyfriend's eyes. And then Johnny Depp's death scene in the waterbed. That's one of the most epic death scenes because they use over 500 gallons of fake blood in that scene. They used so much fake blood in that scene that it splashed on several cameras, even tore up the cameras and caused an electrical outage during that filming of that scene, man. They used so much blood.
Freddy Krueger killed Captain Jack Sparrow.
He did, dead.
There's just so many. When you look at Nightmare on Elm Street, I agree with what you guys said about it becoming after pretty much 3 on. It started getting comedic. I think that you lose that edge of what Freddy really could have been.
So here's my question to you then, because it's your favorite horror movie. Okay, you really like them. You've seen all of the sequels.
Yeah.
Besides part 1, because part 1 in the Nightmare on Elm Street universe is going to be everybody's favorite.
Yeah.
Or at least going to be 90% of everybody's favorite. You take out part 1, what sequel would you say is the best sequel out of that franchise?
3.
Well, yeah okay. The 3, almost have to cancel out 3 too because, everybody's going to say 3. But
if you take 1 and 3 out, then I guess it's going to be New Nightmare because that's probably just the best. That's just the best because if you think about this, if you took out, we always talk about Halloween and all the timelines. If you took this movie out or took this movie out, but think about this: if you took out all these sequels, you could have had Nightmare on Elm Street 1, 2, and 3. You could have left out 4, 5, and 6 and added New Nightmare, and those 4 movies would have been a great 4 movie run because they all went together in a way.
I see that.
Because if you go Nightmare 2, Dream Warriors, where Nancy comes back and they end up killing Freddy, and then she ends up dying, and then you bring back the New Nightmare thing. Those are 4 good movies. You could do without the rest of the sequels. You don't need them.
I would put those 4 in a box set together, and I would say that's a good 4 movies as far as the Nightmare on Elm Street universe. Now, if you're saying, okay, you got, 4, 5, and 6, and then you had Freddy's Dead, or is Freddy's Dead Part 6?
Freddy's Dead's Part 6.
Freddy's Dead's Part 6, yeah. So 4, 5, and 6 out of those 3 movies, I'm going to go with Part 5, The Dream Child. Was that what it is, The Dream Child?
Yeah.
And because what I liked about it is it told a lot of Freddy's backstory about how his mom was raped by 100 different, crazy people in an insane asylum and all this stuff.
So that actually come in to play in Part 3, did it not? Whenever they were talking to Amanda Kruger, and she was the I guess that ghost nun that was wearing white.
Yeah.
Wasn't that in Part 3?
Yeah.
That come in talking about being raped by the 99 maniacs, and then by the time you get to Part 5, it's actually going into more detail.
Yeah. Part 5 was on the other hand, Part 5 was probably one of the cheesiest ones too, because you got the little kid acting like Freddy half the time and stuff like that.
Well, look, yeah, I get what you're saying. What was the one where he was on the beach and he was wearing the sunglasses. Man, that was some stupid crap. Man.
See, you have I'll give that one of the most stupid scenes. Now, another scene I hated was when I forget which movie it was in, but you had the chick that was like a drug addict, and he like shoots her in the arm with the needle finger.
No, that was part 3. That was one of the Dream Warriors. That was one of the Dream Warriors.
I would have put that in probably 5 or 6 because I think it's so stupid.
So for some reason, I have no idea why it kind of scared me. Maybe it was just because I was young when I seen it. But the part where the guy was Wizard Master, and it was part 3, and he was in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And he turned into the wizard. And I was thinking, man, Freddy's about to turn it on you, man. Don't run towards him. Don't run towards him. And he was shooting him with that lightning.
Yeah.
And he ran towards him, and then Freddy grabbed him up. I thought, oh man, don't do it. I felt bad.
Yeah, I remember that. Travis, how many Nightmare on Elm Street movies you seen?
I probably watched them all when I was a kid, but I ain't watched them since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember all the killing scenes y'all are talking about, but I mean, I watched it like I watched any of the other ones. I mean, I didn't.
Well, honestly,
Really
if you
have a
have,
favorite.
really all you need to watch is the first 3.
Yeah.
The New Nightmare is pretty good, but the first 3, the rest of them, you just throw them out pretty much.
Yeah, I think you go 1, 2, 3, and New Nightmare, and I think like Corky said, you buy that you get that in a block, man. That's all you need.
Yeah. Yeah, because I can tell you Freddy's Dead, I've probably seen that movie one time. I don't really know I know at one point during the movie you put on some 3D glasses, and then
It was right there at the last 10 minutes of it.
yeah, but I couldn't tell you anything about that movie hardly.
Man,
Which one was it where he was going to kill somebody and there was a cartoon?
That was part 4.
That was one of them.
That was the guy that drew the comic books and stuff. He got killed. That was part 4.
All those movies run in together with me because I can't differentiate between
It's the same. It's the same one where the guy was the karate guy, and he was in his dojo, and all of a sudden the glove starts coming out. He starts karate fighting the glove or some bull crap.
Yeah.
It all just got silly, just way too. Of course, we're not talking about Academy Award winning movies here. Okay, so they're all going to be silly, but there's another level of silly that started happening with Freddy Krueger.
And what sucks is Freddy could have been such a good character, man, if they would have just kept it like they kept it in part 1 and 2, especially. But man, tried to turn him into something they didn't need to turn him into, man. They could have really made Freddy something scary, and they went for another route with him. I don't think they should have went with it.
Well, yeah, but Robert Englund is going to always be the only Freddy. I mean, every movie I ever seen him in after that, like, hey man, Freddy Krueger's in that movie.
And I agree with that too.
It wasn't ever, hey, that's Robert Englund. No, that's Freddy Krueger, bro.
But you know what the common denominator is with Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th?
People get killed.
No, it's the directors and the creators. Because think about this. The Halloween movies were never the same when Carpenter isn't directing. Nightmare on Elm Street's not the same when Wes Craven's not directing.
Well, I mean, Halloween 2 was directed by Rick Rothenthal or whoever, however you say his last name. And that's my favorite Halloween movie of the whole series.
I mean, it's good, but it don't have that. What I'm saying is that when you get that original flavor from a director like Carpenter and Craven and Cunningham from Friday the 13th 1, you don't get that back in the sequels.
That's some good insight, Matt. I really thought about that.
Thank you.
There'll be somebody that comments about that. That was the best quote of the damn night right there.
But he's the best one of us, man. What are you talking about? Who is this loser talking about Matt being the Jesus of our podcast?
That's Jesus.
That's Matt the Jesus McConkey.
Yeah.
Matt the Messiah McConkey.
I'm gonna be like John Turturro in The Big Lebowski.
Hey,
No,
name the podcast Matt's Doobash instead of the Doobash.
Man, his guess.
I get what you're saying, Matt, with the
Call it
original
the douche
directors.
bash.
I do understand what you're saying, but I mean, there's been some sequels out there that was just as good as what the originals were. I mean, you look at Friday the 13th Part 4, that wasn't Cunningham, but Friday the 13th Part 4, Friday the 13th Part 6 is Corky's favorite.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, yeah, it's one of mine. I mean, I love 6. I thought
it's
You know what I think deserved a sequel and it never got one?
what's that?
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
Big Trouble in Little China is an awesome ass movie.
I'm watching it
I
right
don't
now
think
for
it's a-
free. I'm watching it right now on YouTube for nothing. I don't understand why there was not a sequel to this movie.
Well,
I
everybody
mean-
got killed.
Without this movie, there is no Mortal Kombat. Zero.
Everybody got
Everybody-
killed in that movie.
Everybody from Mortal Kombat was based on the people from this movie.
Raiden and Liu Kang, definitely.
And Shang Tsung,
Yeah, I can see that.
Raiden?
Goro. That
Raiden?
dude didn't have. Yep, Raiden. Yeah.
Who would have been
Lightning dude.
Goro?
I think it would have been that big monster that that slipped in the back of his truck there.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have 4 arms, but he was a big, big burly dude. NPC.
on the Pork
but-
Chop Express.
Yeah, man. And I think Johnny Cage was Kurt Russell's dude. And, Liu Kang was this little guy. Egg Shin was probably, hell, I don't know. Damn sure wasn't Kano, but it was somebody like that. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm with you. I love that movie.
Yeah, I
Corky ain't never seen it, so he can't keep up with this conversation.
Waiting on somebody to say it.
You don't like Kurt Russell.
You don't like Kurt
Oh,
Russell?
man.
Oh, I never said that. I don't like.
That was Walt Disney's dying words was Kurt Russell.
Listen, I think Kurt Russell is an
Swear to
awesome
God.
actor. I got nothing against Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell rules. So, having said that, if everybody doesn't know, it's become a little joke about how these guys watch all this off the wall bull crap, and they want to make fun.
crap.
They're going
What the hell's off the wall about
Hold on now.
Goodfellas, man? Ain't seen
Hold on,
Goodfellas.
Yeah, it's really off the wall. They only won like 4 Oscars. I'm gonna
Good
raise the bullshit
God.
flag as high as it will go right here.
Yeah, Back to the Future's off the wall.
So we're gonna fall off the flagpole.
If
son.
they want to end every episode with a game we're going to call "Has Cookie Seen It?" So, whichever one of you's got this, B movie, y'all about to spit it out. Let's see if I've heard
It
about
can
it.
be an A movie. You ain't gonna have seen it.
Yeah, man. Goodfellas is an A movie, man.
It was
I got no-
fellas is A plus movie.
Scarface was A plus, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right. I got you one.
I
You
see.
Have you seen Brad Pitt movies? You know who Brad Pitt is?
I watched one last night, sucker.
All right,
What
sucker. You seen the movie Seven?
I have.
What's in the box? What's in the box?
A severed head, homie.
Oh,
Have I seen 7?
What's in the
You seen Copycat?
Probably not. No.
No, see, I knew you didn't see Copycat.
That how the game goes. Tonight I win.
Porky is one. He's one. What is it? He's one.
1
for
in
two.
6,000.
He's 1-6.
So far, he's 1 for 2.
Yeah.
And I got to remember them movies that pop up on the group chat because I know you seen more than I know you ain't seen more than one.
You only
Hey,
get
listen.
one question
Hey,
a week,
listen.
man. One question.
Listen, Copycat is great, and nobody ever talks about him being a great actor. But Harry Connick Jr. in that movie, he's got some range, buddy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Connick Jr.'s good, man.
He's got some range.
Copycat's a good movie. Sliver is another good movie. Sharon Stone.
In that.
Yeah, and one of the Baldwin brothers, wasn't
Yeah, it was Billy Baldwin or somebody.
it? Hell, they all looked alike. They're like
Yeah,
newscasters.
but
man.
okay,
One
Corky,
dies,
okay,
put one
Corky.
in his place.
I've
You
seen Slither. I just don't remember it.
Have you seen Flatliners?
Yes.
You got to see Flatliners if you ain't
That's
seen it.
where
That's
they
cool.
like put themselves to death and bring themselves back alive. And all
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, that's a good movie.
Yeah, they actually remade that movie a few years ago, didn't
Yeah,
they?
it sucked.
I
The
wish they quit
remake of it
remaking
sucked.
movies because Point Break was fantastic, the original one. The
Hell yeah,
remake,
it was.
garbage.
Yes, it was.
Maybe.
Point Break 1991, the original. You
Yes.
can't get no better than that. Okay.
It's Back to the Future. You can't remake that movie, man. Come
The
on.
remake of Point Break, and they're all into these X Games and extreme sports.
Yes,
Man,
for
God,
that.
that sucked, dude.
Get out of here with that, man.
Hanging out on yachts when, Patrick Swayze and his group was living on the beach, son.
Yeah, maybe surfing, man. Just living that life.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's
From back here that was really good. And one of my favorites is Usual Suspects.
The Usual
pretty good.
Suspects is a good movie.
Porky's never seen it.
You need to go. You need to go to movies, son. That's what you need to go.
Gordon, we just need to start making the podcast about a roast. We
It's
need
the
to
Corky Batch.
every episode's a roast, man. But I'll say this. Next week we're going to have Adam Cook on the show. He's going to be talking about Appalachian ghost stories.
Appalachian Ghost Stories, baby.
Appalachian ghost stories. So it should be cool. And I also want to tell everybody that we're on Spotify now. So look us up on Spotify. Hit us up on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe to everything, and help us grow this channel as much as we can. So for all of us out here, we'll see you guys next week. We talk about these Appalachian ghost stories. See you next week.
Yeah, they tuned in, it's the Dude Bash, rolling deep. Mic check like that, fine, let's hit a beat. Voices flowing like the river, knowledge on the spree. Every episode a journey, come ride with me. Just hit play, it's a vibe, can't you see? The Dude Bash, we breaking it down. From the underground to the top of the town. Life's effects, intertwined, wearing the crown. Podcast